Often called the best driver never to win the World Championship, Sir Sterling Moss was runner-up in the title chase 4 times. He won nearly 40% of the races he entered and starred in both open-wheel and sports cars. In his 14-year career, he is claimed to have driven some 84 different marques, from Lotus and Cooper to Maserati and Mercedes. He is still a favorite throughout the racing world, and he joins us tonight from the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance in Florida. At that event, an impressive array of racing legends have been greeting their fans and raising money for charity, and I've heard rumors that amid all those gorgeous cars, there were some fascinating racing stories to be told. Sterling, welcome to Windtunnel. It's an honor to have you here tonight and a pleasure to get to talk to you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
The guest list included John Surtees, John Fitch, Vic Elford, Brian Redmond, Herschel McGriff, Chris Economaki. I have a question first about that storytelling, which I presume was world-class. I'm curious about how closely the stories resembled the actual truth, at least as you remember it.
Which one's that?
Well, any of the stories. The general. I find that when legends get together, that sometimes the stories have been embellished over the years. Is there any truth in that?
Oh no, Oh, there's a lot of truth, of course there is, but a lot of things happen. The great thing about motor racing is absolutely all sorts of things happen. I mean, more in the old days, I think, because safety didn't matter so much and we didn't wear seat belts, or we didn't in Europe anyway. But there are many stories going around, and I think they're really worth an awful lot. But one thing I must tell you about Chris Economaki that I remember, because I was there, he was interviewing me, I think, at Daytona, and we used to run across the road, then jump in for the Le Mans start, and he was interviewing me, and they dropped the flag, and I had to sort of shout round the back and say to him, "I'm sorry, I must go now because the flag race is on." There are a lot of stories, yeah.
You are one of the few men who would allow racers at that level who would allow the media that kind of access. You were legendary for sitting there conducting interviews just as the race was ready to go. Let me ask you about that.
That was our life.
That Mercedes behind you, I understand, is the sister car to the one in which you won the 55 Mille Miglia, which was part of this amazing sweep. It also included Targa Florio and the Tourist Trophy. And the event down there at Amelia Island this year celebrated that golden age of real road racing. Those with a sense of history appreciate that. The current generation raised on circuit racing may not. What made these events so special?
They were special because they were run on the roads, the normal roads, sometimes not properly closed, sometimes fully closed. They were special because safety didn't matter. I remember I never raced with a seatbelt, but the reason for that, of course, I was frightened of fire. But I always raced with short sleeves, that sort of thing. It was a very much more friendly atmosphere. The drivers could come, and the public would meet the drivers in the pits, rather like they do still, I think, in USAC actually, or at NASCAR, which is terrific. But it was a very much friendlier atmosphere, and you know, the speeds were pretty high. I mean, with that car behind, I was doing 179, 180 miles an hour on the open road, and in fact did the 1,000 miles in just under 10 hours 4 minutes, I think it was. So you know, we didn't hang around.
No, it's an amazing difference from that to what we see today. Also in 55, perhaps the blackest day in racing history, you and your teammate, Juan Manuel Fangio, leading Le Mans in the Mercedes. The team car crashed into the crowd, more than 80 spectators killed. From your perspective as a driver, how did that tragedy change racing?
Oh, terribly. I mean, it was something that was tragedy the way it happened. I mean, it was the circumstances of one car pulling across another one, going up the back. I mean, it was an impossible thing to recreate. And here was this amazing race, which is really one of the most important races, like Indianapolis, in the world. You've got 250,000 people there, and the car took off. It wasn't the car's fault or anything, and of course killed a lot of people. And after that, of course, they banned racing in Switzerland, and they cut back in many other places. It did an awful lot of damage, but I'm glad to say the sport did go on, and obviously the safety was stepped up, and today we really do have a fantastically safe sport. I mean, for somebody to be killed in Formula One today, I'm glad to say is very, very rare.
We have a viewer on the line, Gary in Dana Point with Sterling Moss. Go ahead.
Good evening, Dave and Sir Sterling.
Evening,
I was
Gary.
very lucky. The first time I ever went to a sports car race was in Laguna Seca in 1961, and you had a classic duel with Dan Gurney. Anyway, you've already touched on the subject that I had tonight, which is you were talking about safety and helmets and also about seatbelts, and I would like you to comment about today's racing and how, with all the safety equipment for the drivers and the safety equipment on the cars and the tracks, and how that's affected things like overtaking, or overzealous overtaking that we sometimes have, and just general comments about how today's safety.
Well, let me tell you this. I'm the wrong person to ask, really, because one of the main reasons I joined motor racing when I was an idiot of 17, 18 years old was because it was dangerous. When you're 17 or 18, you want to do something that's dangerous. You want to go out there and say, all right, I'll have a go. I'll put my life on the line. And that was one of the important ingredients to me. But the most important thing in the whole world for us as racing drivers always has been the safety of you, the spectators, and of course, the marshals. That, I think, matters. I think a man should have the right, if he wants to risk his neck, he does it. I mean, why shouldn't we? And now we've got so much safety in which is, one can't say it's bad, it's really good, it's great, but it's brought in a contempt of danger where it doesn't really seem to matter because the cars are so safe, which is wonderful. I mean, a modern Formula One car is a fantastic vehicle. Do you know that I drove one not too long ago? I'm doing 185 miles an hour and I lifted off. The acceleration, the deceleration, that's the stopping power, I got by just lifting off was more than I had in my whole racing career of 525 races with the brakes full on.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, that is just lifting off. And now, at under 100 miles an hour, these cars have got so much downforce, which of course is you know, the airstream, that they will stick to the ceiling. Now, those are incredible things. I mean, what these cars do, the power, the strength, is amazing to me. And the problem that you've got, though, is that they are so sophisticated now that obviously it's making the drivers appear, and I say appear, less able to beat another guy because so much is taken out of it. It's rather like if you take an automatic camera, you get a fabulous picture. Now, if you are a really great photographer, you don't want to be hampered by these things doing it automatically. You like to adjust your own lens and the speed and everything else. Well, in motor racing now, regrettably, because of the technology going ahead so fast, we've got cars that are not easy to drive. I'm not saying that, because the drivers are very, very good, but it lessens the driver contribution toward the success. That's the problem.
That's an interesting viewpoint. I'm going to stop you there and take a commercial break. We'll come back on the other side. I want to speak with you about your ranking of the greatest drivers of all time and perhaps about the technology that has changed the sport so dramatically.